Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Thanks for tuning in again on another Wednesday and another Underwater Wednesday. You know, our last tournament was on Lake Champlain, and we're about to go to the Detroit River and Lake St. Clair. And so it's got me thinking a lot about smallmouth, which means, you know what? Hey, if I'm going to get in the pool, I'm going to be doing something related to smallmouth. And today we are going to talk about spy baits. I call them spy baits. A lot of guys call them spin baits. But we're going to get a couple in the pool. We're going to show you what they look like. I'm going to give you some tips about how I work a spy bait and a couple of different retrieves that you might want to think about if you are going to be throwing spy baits or spin baits for smallmouth bass. Stick around, guys. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. I appreciate you tuning in. I'm Mark Fisher, and today our topic is spy baits. That right there is the Berkley Slow Fall 70 spy bait, and we're going to be that's the bait that I used a lot in the pool here that we're going to show you in just a minute. Before I get to that, I would like to ask you, if you aren't a subscriber to Mark Fisher Outdoors, please consider subscribing to Mark Fisher, hitting that notification button. We put content out Monday through Friday every week to help you become a better fisherman, learn more about tackle, tips, things like that. Not to mention, we talk about issues related to the industry and things like that. So we'd love to have you join the Mark Fisher Outdoors community. If you are a subscriber, thank you so much for doing that. Thanks for tuning in every day. We appreciate your loyalty. Really, 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 we do. And you know what? You could help us by sharing our videos with some other people that you think would be. We absolutely are invested in trying to grow this channel. And the way to do that is, you know, word of mouth. Please let people know and have them check it out and see whether they like it as well. So let's talk about spy baits. We're gonna show you some underwater footage that we have from working this spy bait in the water. And the first thing that you should know when you're working a spy bait is that as that bait falls after the initial cast, the bait is actually going to work without you doing a thing. That vibration, and that's one of the reasons, guys, that I like the Berkley Slow Fall spy bait a lot, because it has that slower fall, but you see that vibration as it's falling. And that really right there, if you make your cast and it's in the range of a smallmouth and it just starts to flutter down like that, you'll be amazed at how many strikes you get before you actually start to crank, or just as you actually start to crank that spy bait. Which leads me to tip number 2 when it comes to fishing a spy bait. When you start to crank that bait, it's slow. That is a slow crank. You just want to work that bait as slowly as possible. Just to have it move, just to get those blades spinning in the water. But this is not a fast retrieve bait. This is just get it to a certain depth, keep it at that depth, and move it where you can keep it at that depth, but, you know, keep moving it. Guys, the third tip that I have has to do with the setup that I use when I'm throwing a spy bait. Number 1, I want the longest rod that I have, because I want to make long casts, bombing casts with this spy bait. Longer rod helps me make those long casts. I also want a rod that is extremely parabolic. Those are small little hooks in that spy bait. Fish is going to grab them. I don't want to, this is not a jerking hook set kind of a thing. This is load up, work the fish back, especially with those acrobatic smallmouth. I don't want to be pulling hooks out of the fish's mouth with a stiffer rod. So I want that rod to give me a lot of bend and a lot of give as that fish fights. The next part about this third tip is that this is one of the few situations that I don't use braided line with a fluorocarbon leader. I will put fluorocarbon on my spinning reel for using a spy bait. And the reason for this is you can see even in this shallow situation, because this was a pool and it wasn't very long cast, the bait has a tendency to ride where the nose is pointing up. If you throw braided line, even with those long casts, your bait will start to ride in that nose up position, because the braided line will float and put that nose in that upward position. By using fluorocarbon, you can make a long cast. That fluorocarbon line will start to sink in the water, and you'll get less of that nose up position on your bait as the bait is coming through the water. So those are my tips in terms of rod rigging and the line to use and things like that. Now, when it comes to retrieves, as I mentioned, a slow, steady retrieve, that's probably what I do most of all when working a spy bait. The one thing that I will show you, and you'll see this in the clips that we have here, there are times when I will pause the bait. And that pause, either a brief pause and then restarting, will trigger a bite. There are many times, and I've seen this using forward-facing sonar, where the fish is actually following the spy bait. And a pause can have a tendency to draw that strike. The other time that I'll pause the bait is if I happen to be working a spy bait and I see a piece of cover and I want to drop that spy bait in near that piece of cover. So maybe I'm working my spy bait over a boulder, and as I get past that boulder, I want to kill it and let it flutter down so that it flutters down right where a fish might be holding in the shade of that boulder or something like that. And then I'll start it up again. A lot of times they'll come out of that cover that they've been holding in to come and strike that bait once it flutters down, getting right into their zone. So basically retrieves are slow and steady, slow and then a brief pause, and pause near cover that you think is holding potential targets, potential bass, and then continue your steady retrieve. This is not a jerk bait. This is not a bait that you typically work fast and get many fish to go, working it in an erratic motion or working it faster than normal. Guys, this is not a bait. Your hands are doing very, very little, no action in terms of creating action in the bait. It's all in your reel handle and just trying to keep that steady. And as I said, a majority of the time, your spy bait will just load up and you'll know that you have a fish. It won't be a violent strike, as opposed to just kind of that fish coming behind it and taking it and loading up on it. Guys, I hope this information helps. I hope it encourages you, if you don't, to throw a spy bait, because it can really be a neat bait to play around with smallmouth. And if you're a forward-facing sonar guy, it can be a neat bait to use with forward-facing sonar as well. So get out there, throw a spy bait, throw a spin bait, and see if that doesn't put some big smallies in the boat for you the next time you're out doing that. Guys, we appreciate you tuning in to Mark Fisher Outdoors, and we'll see you again tomorrow on another episode. Take care, everybody.